Committee. My name is Zainab Salbi. I'm the founder of Women for Women International and co-founder of Daughters for Earth. And like many of you, I've dedicated my life to doing good in the world, to service, to being in service to the most marginalized people in the world. And 3 years ago, just short of 3 years ago, I was rushed into the hospital for finding a quarter of a gallon of liquid pressing on my heart. And in the midst of the operations and the ICU and the doctors and the nurses, there was a moment in which I thought, this is it. I'm taking my last breath. And in that intimate moment, which I believe all of us are going to encounter, the conversation was not, did I accomplish enough? Was not, did I do enough good in the world? Did I have enough in the world? It was kindness. Did I live my life in kindness to myself and to others? Did I live my life in love to myself and to others? And the truth is, for so much part of my life, actually, I thought of kindness and love to the larger others, but to myself, or to even the others that are in front of me, my colleagues, my neighbors, my friends. You don't pay as much attention to that. And the experience took me, which dismantled all my shields, because, these things it's not that they didn't matter, I'm still in service. But they introduce a new conversation. How is this being in service is a holistic experience where I am becoming what I'm advocating for. The kindness and love is in me as much as I'm giving it in others. And I spent the following years meditating, gardening, walking in trails. And what I discovered one day, I woke up with ultimate joy, absolute joy, for realizing that there is such a thing as profound connection to our hearts. I thought of my heart as having a hand, holding my hand and saying, don't leave me again. And a profound connection to nature, and a profound connection to each other as a result. And what I don't talk about often, because it has a bad rep, a profound connection to God. And God has such a bad reputation, and it's a controversial discussion because there's so many oppressions in the world in the name of God. I'm a women's rights activist, and right now a lot of women's rights are being taken in the name of God. So how do we reconcile between the oppression that is happening in that and between my own experience of true love to God, to the divine? And I think this reconciliation a lot of people are struggling with. And so this is the theme of our panel here today. So allow me to introduce my panelists. And I will start with Rabbi David Rosen, who's Chief Rabbi David Rosen, who is actually amazing CV, including he's the International Director of Interreligious Affairs of the American Jewish Committee. And most notably, he was, in November 2005, Pope Benedict made Rabbi Rosen a Knight of the Order of St. Gregory the Great, and Queen Elizabeth, what is it? Made him, exactly. I was like, commander of the British Empire for his contributions to interfaith and religion. So what an honor. Thank you. Please, thank you for giving me tips. You sit here. And then after that, Father Timothy Radcliffe, who comes from from the Dominican order and has a rich history in teaching in Oxford University, University of London, many books, including one that got translated in 24 languages, which is called Alive in God, a Christian imagination. So welcome, Father Timothy. And then, last but not least, Imam Sayed Razawi, a British scholar of religion and Chief Imam and Director General of the Scottish Ahlul Bayt Society. He's also associate and a director of at Harvard University's Weatherhead Center for International Affairs, as well as visiting scholar at the University of Slidell. Okay, so come on in. Thank you. Wonderful. Well, pleasure conversing with all of you. I mean, and having read your bios and all of that, I think one of the things that unite you all is your commitments for reconciliation and for love, and to take us back to the origin of what is religion and what is God and all of that. But before I go into this, because we have issues with religion these days, right? I mean, it's
especially us.
Right? So the question is, what is the relevance of religion for the modern day women and men? And I want to start with the oldest religion, with you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Zainab. It's a great joy to be here, both with my colleagues, with you, and with everyone in the audience. Of course, the question begs a definition. And there is a British sociologist, Douglas Martin, I think his name is, who refers to religion in terms of 3 B's: belief, behavior, and belonging. And I think this is very helpful in the very short time I have to deal with a very big subject, to be able to put those into headlines. The wonderful thinker William James, in the end of the 19th century, wrote an essay that was published called The Will to Believe. And what he was arguing is that the most important things in terms of our emotional well-being are precisely things that are not objectively demonstrable or scientifically provable. Things like love, friendship, loyalty. If you don't have a belief in that which transcends the immediate corporeal context, you have therefore nothing to reach out, to strive for, to connect with. And that if you go about life, for example, at staying friendship, being suspicious of anyone, and you've got maybe good reason, logical reason to be suspicious, but then your life is going to be a pretty miserable one. You're not going to be even somebody who people want to have as a friend. So aspiring from that is precisely that which ennobles you. When you strive for the most noble, you can mostly ennoble yourself. And therefore, what we orientate ourselves towards has a big impact upon us. And that's supported by the wonderful study done by Bob Rosenberg in Harvard in '63, known as the Pygmalion effect, where in fact, if you project a certain image, then people are more likely to be inspired by it. And that refers to you too, if you therefore aspire for that which is the most noble. William James had an additional comment that people said, well, your hopes may be disproved. And he would say, I far prefer dupery through hope than dupery through fear.
That's true.
And that is, I think, people without that sense of the transcendent in their life are people who are very limited, very often victims of fear and of depression. And when you can aspire for the transcendent, your life is so much more wonderful. And therefore, it seems to me so sad that there are people who do not sense the transcendent in their lives. I feel it, and for me, it means a daily blessing. So that's the belief dimension. Maybe I could just add from Groucho Marx's comment, another profound philosopher. Anybody who's never been taken for a ride has never been on a journey worth taking. But then you have the issue of behavior. And that has to do with ethics and morals. Now, you don't have to be a religious person to be moral. But what is your foundation? People know the golden rule that appears in the book of Leviticus, written, 3,000 years ago or maybe more. Love your neighbor as yourself. But it doesn't end there. It's love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. What does that mean? It means that our neighbor is someone who has the divine within her or him. We use divine image or the divine spark or whatever it may be. And this is a recognition that while all life is sacred, and indeed I very much identify with Satish Kumar's comment about seeing the sacred in the world around us, in animal life, and not killing animals, let alone eating them, and not desecrating our environment. In fact, I would say all noble endeavors should be plant-based. All their events should be based on a plant-based diet. We shouldn't have any dead bodies as part and parcel of our activity. But beyond that, the ethical means seeing the transcendent in the other. And that gets its inspiration precisely from the religious dimension. That gives it such enormous power. But religion is also belonging. It means being part of community. There are very few structures that bring people together as beautifully, as consistently, as profoundly as religious communities. Now, these things can be found outside religious contexts, of course, but when you have all the wisdom and the richness of religious traditions, there is such a great offering there for people to be able to benefit from. I spend my life, as you've already described, in interreligious encounters. This, for me, is not only combating evil, misconceptions, stereotypes, building bridges. It's, for me, the discovery of the divine beyond my own religious tradition and heritage. And when I encounter people from different other works of life, I'm enriched, I'm ennobled. It's a great blessing.
It's beautiful. I mean, and you brought so many things, including evolution of concepts. You know, plant-based diet is not based on some traditional religious habits, but I like that. Yes. Okay. We can argue. In my tradition, we sacrifice the sheep for.
No, but that doesn't mean that the ideal might not be greater than that. In other words, all journey, even all religions, are on a journey.
Yeah. I agree. I'm in agreement with you, actually. But I want to go to Father Timothy. I had the privilege of sharing lunch with you the other day and got to know your own journeys around the world, including my own home country, Iraq, which I really, truly appreciate, and your witnessing of different experiences, including youth experiences around the world and their relationship with religion. I go back with you to the question, why religion is still relevant to women and men of the modern day?
Thank you so much. And I think the most wonderful thing today is that whatever we say, the three of us are sitting together. The three of us, a rabbi, imam, a Catholic priest, in friendship. And that speaks volumes in a world in which so much religion is involved with violence. We, I hope, represent peace together. And it's a fascinating question. I went out to dinner with a friend of mine a few years ago, and halfway through, a Turkish restaurant. And he said to me, you know, I have this son, and he keeps saying, oh, what's the point of Christianity? What's it got to do with my life? Is it relevant to anything? And I got so obsessed with the question that I wrote a book called What is the Point of Christianity? Please do buy it. And then I met this friend a few years later, and we a Thai restaurant this time, and he said, well, my son, yes, he liked that book, but he said, okay, so I can see roughly its relevance, but why go to church? So I thought, oh my goodness, I've got to write another book. And then my friend died, I lost contact with his son, which is just as well. Otherwise, I have to go on answering question after question. And in a certain sense, I hope this doesn't muck it all up. I don't think that the question is the relevance of religion. Because I think everything is relevant in relationship to God. You know, when you fall in love, you don't say, I'm in love and this is relevant, it'll give me good happiness. I had the great pleasure of having breakfast with Rabbi David's wife yesterday. He was there as well. And I'm sure that when you married her, you didn't say, I want to marry you because it'll be good for my mental health. It'll cure my loneliness. Because love is its own end. St. Augustine of Hippo was a theologian, North African theologian, 1,500 years ago. And he said, love, love. Fall in love with love. And then you will meet God. And I think all the most important human activities are done for their own sake. We just had wonderful music just before we appeared on stage. And this whole days are filled with glorious music, which I think is done for its own sake. And any great art, dance, films, in a way they define what is relevance for us, rather than being relevant to us. I don't know whether you heard of Jacob Collier, an English singer. I kept listening to his music yesterday. And I think when you have creative artists, like so many of you are, they open the door to infinity. And I don't mind whether they're Christian or Muslim or Jewish or atheist. In their creativity, they open the door. And so they're our friends. All artists are the friends of religion because they help us to journey to the infinite. And I hope, David, you won't correct me, but when in the Hebrew Bible, Moses asks, what is the name of God? He says, I am. I am who I am. Not, I'm a very useful insurance policy. I am. And when we see another human being, I think our eyes are opened when we say, she is. I love what Satish Kumar said yesterday about HR, human resources, human relationships. The word I also hate is personnel. None of us are personnel. We're persons. And I think what religion does is to introduce you to the great gratuity of goodness. And yesterday we heard so much about also gratuitous violence. I think Louisa bowled us over when she talked about the suffering that she'd met, the death of her son. Or my friend Rajni, who I hope is here somewhere ready to cheer me on, when Rajni talked about all the violence of partition, the death of the Mahatma, all the violence in the Ukraine, and our hope lies in how this destructive, pointless violence is embraced by what you might say a gratuitous goodness. Karl Barth, a great theologian, said, in the music of Bach, a great no is embraced with a resounding yes. So I think you're going to tell me to stop in a moment. So very last point, how do we move from that gratuitous violence to the yes that is creative? And I would say it is above all by seeing each other's faces. Can you be violent when you see another human being's face? I can't actually see your faces very clearly, but you can see mine, I hope, and all of ours. Marilyn Robinson, a great American novelist, said, look at the human face, it's courage, it's loneliness. You can't be violent when you see another face. And to finish, 2 seconds. Once I was in Algeria, in the south of Algeria, in a car with a bishop. I always like to have bishops drive my cars, And it was a very small battered car, and we got caught up in violence. There was the Algerian army fighting against an uprising. Our car was surrounded by people with knives and guns. I thought it was the end. There was a young man standing in front of the car with a great stone over the windscreen. And I looked at his face. And his face was filled with hatred. But underneath the hatred, I saw a face filled with fear. And beneath that, I saw a face of somebody who his mother loved. Somebody lovable. And we looked at each other. And I think that's why I'm alive today.
Beautiful. And I have a million questions, but I'm going to hold myself because I really want to hear Imam Sayed's response. You represent the Muslim, I can't say anybody represent any of the larger faith that you represent, but I'm curious from your experience, Imam, why and how religion is still relevant today in the lives of women and men of the modern time.
Thank you so much. It's very kind of you. It's always a blessing to be in the company of the wise. And I think the answer lies there. The fact that we're all gathered here in our diversity See, the question of religion, I guess, is as old as humanity itself. And I think originally there were 4 things that religion gave humanity. I think the first is quality of life. And that's what religion provided for people, is that quality of life, upliftment. The ability to share goodness, as we're doing today. Also at the same time, as you've heard, to share pain with one another. And that off-burdening of pain leads to a level of happiness. And so as we're here listening to each other, it gives me great joy, gives me great happiness to know that there are different perspectives. There's someone I can be here in friendship with to share my pain. But I guess at the same time, that when the first ever human being was suffering or was in pain or felt like sharing happiness, it was a matter of consciousness for them. That since there's been consciousness, there's always been a move towards something far greater than us, a movement towards the divine. Whatever you'd like to call it, and whichever label you want to put on it. If religion is about a movement towards a higher consciousness, or for example, religion is a movement towards the divine, then you find that all of us, 7 billion of us, are moving towards something. Each one of us gets up in the morning with a level of perfection. We brush our teeth, hopefully. We have a shower. Some of us may not. But the fact is we still put on perfume if we can do. We want to smell good. Why is that? It's because we're mimicking in our daily life beauty. From combing your hair, some of us have to shave, others don't. But in some movement of ours, early in the morning, and as we go on through the day, we're going towards a perfection of beauty. And at the same way, when you go outside and you see someone suffering, you see an old lady who can't cross the road, you go run, you help them cross that road. What are you doing effectively? Whether you're giving, whether you're sharing, whether you're showing compassion, whether you believe in God or not, what you're doing is you're mimicking the image of God. And so deep down inside of us, we all have God there. We're mimicking his or her characteristics in some shape or form. We're moving towards a level of perfection. So going back to the first thing I said, ever since humanity's been here, for whatever reason, we've been mimicking God, or that which we have in our mind, of the perfect, of the absolute. And so in this way, what does religion give us? Well, I guess the first thing religion gives us, as we've already heard, is correct behavior. It's how to interact with one another in the best of ways. It gives us structure. But I guess there's something more than that as well. We as human beings, we want to know 2 things. How does this work? Why does it work? Science may tell you the how, but it's religion that tells you the why. Why are we here for? It's a question. Why are we sitting here? Why are you here? Why are you and I in the pursuit of happiness? That's what we are. Everything comes back to one thing, happiness. Where do we find happiness? And you still find today that the vast majority of people, regardless of whether you call it religion or otherwise, are in the pursuit of happiness with something far greater than them. And if that's what you want to call God or the absolute, let's call it that. But whether you're meditating, or whether you're praying, or whether you're looking for reconciliation, or whether you're there to share your burdens, what are you doing? You're trying to move towards happiness, and there happiness lies in something far greater. Now, when we look at the concept of emancipation, even within religion, some of our traditions talk about a messianic age. What is it? What are we looking at? Emancipation. From what? The shackles of slavery, or intellectual slavery, or mental slavery, or emotional slavery, or spiritual slavery? So what we do is, as humanity itself from the very beginning, look towards something greater. If we can call that religion, we see that there's a great relevance even today for that. Because there is a relevance in this world for peace, and harmony, and balance, and kindness, and virtue, and good behavior, but more so being one community. So finally, what does religion give me personally? It gives me hope. And that's why I'm here today. And I'm feeling it must give you hope as well. And this hope is essential, because without hope, humanity dies. That's the relevance of
Thank
religion in the
you.
modern day.
Thank you. I mean, thank you so much for everyone. I have a million questions because you all answered in the roots of religion, the essence, which is love and goodness. And yet, there's so many things happening in the name of religion, as I started, right? So I have a million questions. The role of women in religion, what's happening to women in the name of religion, or to other, or how our people even kill and hate each other in the name of religion, and so many aspects. But these discussions are going to happen in the afternoon, a session I definitely am planning to attend to hear the debate and be part of the debate about how do we reconcile between the essence and between the politics, if you may, of religion, right? And we need it for the world. And the three of your comments reminds me, honestly, where it took me back to Rumi poem, 13th century Sufi poet, and I don't have the poem entirety in my memory, but he starts with, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Jewish, I'm Christian, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Baha'i, I'm Yazidi, I am breath. I am breath. And 20 years ago, I've always believed in that poem. I feel that my language happened to be Muslim language due to my expression of that love. But I could have been born Jewish or Christian or Yazidi or Buddhist or anything. It doesn't matter. I would have expressed my love in that in that other language, right? And people's like, don't say that to anybody. It's dangerous. And I think now it's time for us to say that. I mean, that's what I'm hearing from all of you. The common thread in here is to go back to that essence. So to continue the conversation, I'm only sorry that we couldn't have that conversation now. We'll have to continue that in the afternoon session. I highly recommend it because we do need it in our world and in our lives. And to close us, I'd like to invite Dr. Barry Gerson, who is a medical doctor, but he is also the representative of His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, who sent his personal message to all of us here at the Wellbeing Summit. So thank you for all of us, and we'll invite Dr. Barry Gerson. Please come on.
We stay here.
I don't know.